For more on this story, we can bring in Arnold Monto, professor of epidemiology and global public health at the School of Public Health at the University of Michigan. Thank you very much for joining us here on France 24. Now, the U.S. Center for Disease Control is warning Americans to begin preparing for the possibility of an outbreak. Are we really jumping the gun on this, given that the number of deaths is pretty low, 2,700 deaths compared to 80,000 people infected?
Well, I don't think we're jumping the gun on this. It's pretty clear that it's spreading globally, and it's spreading with people. It's air travel, which is so frequent these days, that's spreading the virus, and it's happening pretty quickly.
Now, we have, in the past 24 hours alone, the number of cases just from Italy has spiked 45%. Authorities in Europe still refusing to shut the border with Italy. Is that wise, in your opinion?
Well, if we were living in a different era where there were passport controls at borders in Europe, it would be possible. I think probably the spread may have happened already. People travel up and back. I believe there are schools that are under quarantine in the UK because students have gone on holiday to Lombardy, to northern Italy. It's almost impossible in this era to prevent spread. Now, once the disease is in a place, we may be able to do what we call non-pharmaceutical interventions to control its spread, namely keeping people away from other people, working from home. There were plans to do this in 2006, 2007, when we thought we were going to have a bad avian influenza outbreak. That never happened, and the plans have sat on shelves and not been looked at for a while.
Now, 80,000 people have been infected with the coronavirus, the majority in mainland China. Is it safe to say, or is it too early to say, in your opinion, that the cases out of mainland China have peaked?
Oh, I don't think the cases outside of China have peaked. The cases in China clearly have peaked, and it's because they used very strong public health interventions to try to keep it from spreading. The problem may be when they resume normal activities that it may come up again. But at least they've tried.
Do you, in your opinion, see the coronavirus reaching potential epidemic levels?
I do, because I think when you talk about the number of cases, these are confirmed cases. These are cases which have been symptomatic and have been tested. The amount of testing has been relatively limited because of a number of factors, including availability of the material. So there are far more cases out there than are being reported. It's the tip of the iceberg. And when I hear about the number of deaths in Italy, there are one of two conclusions, both of them bad. One is that there must be far more cases out there, or the other, if there are not far more cases out there, then the death rates are very high. And some people have even talked about a frequency of death of 1 to 2%. Just remember that the influenza outbreak of 1918, the famous influenza, the Spanish influenza, so-called, of 1918, death rates was 2 to 3% there.
Just very quickly, and a final question to you. Before we came to you, we played a soundbite of the French health minister where he's saying he's not going to be shutting the border with Italy, that France is not going to take that drastic step. I want to ask you about things that are happening in the city itself. In Paris, for instance, it's Fashion Week in the city, something that people from all over the world fly in for. A lot of people gathered in different shows around the city. Is that smart to hold such events at this time?
Well, it's a question of timing. I think the outbreak reaching Paris is inevitable. The question is, how long is it going to take? Ordinarily, I would have predicted it would take maybe two weeks to a month to spread throughout Europe. But the spread seems to be much more rapid. And I think it's because people are moving around so much these days. It's very hard to predict when it's going to show up.
Dr. Arnold Monto, thank you very much for joining us here on the program today.